Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Parenting Teens with Dr. Cam. I'm your host, Dr. Cam, and today I am joined by Judy Thureson. And Judy is a #1 best-selling author right now. Like, what? Wow.
Woo!
And yeah, she wrote Beautiful Tragedy. And we're going to talk about this because in 2019, you lost your son. He was 18 years old to an opioid overdose. And within like weeks, you started chronicling this experience because they brought him in. So you were with him at the end and you basically kept a journal of what was going on. And I've read the book and it's just like, oh my gosh, it's so touching and amazing. But you also, so you get really real time insight into what you're experiencing, and then you talk about how you found tools to work through it. And so now you are going around speaking everywhere and you're coaching people one-on-one and helping them deal with this grief and loss. So welcome, Judy. Thank you for jumping on so early this morning. You're in Arizona, so thank you for jumping on.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate being here. And yeah, actually, I started journaling and chronicling from the day that we received the phone call that my son was on his way to the emergency room. And what makes this so interesting, I guess, is I don't even know what to call it, but as a grief recovery specialist, as a coach, as someone who has been really, this has been my life for the last 16, 17 years, to coach people and kind of help give people tools. Here, I was having to use all these tools for myself in real time, like you said, the worst tragedy a parent can ever go through. And so it's actually, a little bit a different twist to writing a book like this, because it's not like, oh, here's a how-to manual and let me just give you this great, research and theory. But it's like, no, this is in real time. This is what I'm doing. This is what's just helping me to stay alive today, which
Yeah.
is a lot of mindfulness, a lot of meditation, a lot of sitting in our feelings and allowing ourselves to get through the process, right? Because the only way out is through.
Yeah.
And a lot of times we're not willing to do that work because it's very painful work. And a little bit ago, while we were talking offline, we talked about how this grief never goes away, and I think people don't like that because we're in such a fix-it society that, oh, wait, I just give me the 7 steps for this to go away. And
Yeah,
so I can
exactly.
be
Just
fine.
yeah.
And sadly, there are none. But this is kind of the beauty of being human, right? Like,
Yeah.
we have to feel it all. I coach a lot on wholehearted living, and I tell people, like, you cannot fully experience joy at 100% if we don't experience grief and loss and sadness at
Yeah.
100%. And we can't pick and choose, oh no, I want to celebrate the good days. It's, we kind of have to have it all, but that is the dynamic and the beauty of being human. And I think the more we model that for one another, the richer life really is, because who has 100% good days all the time? I mean, maybe on Instagram, but it's not real life,
Yeah.
right?
That's what we portray, which then people think other people experience that, but it doesn't. It's not true.
Yeah, and I love the work that you do for kids and families, and I think this is such an important topic that we need to be talking about so that our kids understand, yeah, life isn't, Instagram worthy every day.
Right.
And even though that's
Right.
what we see, that's not reality. And it's okay to be broken, and it's okay to break down, and it's okay to cry. And these are all very normal feelings. Even grief, grief is not a moral failure or a diagnosis. Grief is just a part of our emotions that need to be embraced and really acknowledged. So,
Yeah. And I think, we look at grief as this, we look at it as something where we've had a tragic loss. And we think, okay, well, I haven't had that tragic loss, or, kind of dealing with that. But we were talking earlier that grief is really, there's a lot of things that we grieve. And I love the way you put it. It's like right now we're dealing with global wide grief because of COVID. So talk to us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, in my training at the Grief Recovery Institute, one of their definitions of grief is um, grief is conflicting feelings caused by the end of a familiar pattern or behavior, right? And so this is the first time when you think about it, pre-virus, life was normal for everyone, and now it's not normal. I mean, we will never be back to what it was in, pre-COVID. And so we have to identify, like, okay, well, what is like our new normal going to be? But that doesn't mean that we don't grieve the old normal of maybe going out without a mask, or being able to go to dinner without, having like this big ordeal, being able to go outside, and especially our children, right? Like being able to go to school. And, a lot of people are learning online. And so a lot of times we don't look at this as grief because we think, oh, that's just not a big deal. Like people have it worse. And so we compare, we minimize, we kind of explain it away. And I think right now is just a time to acknowledge that, you know what, life is different and we're going to get through it, but it's okay to mourn the things that are going to be different,
Yeah. And there's so many parents that are very fearful right now of where their kids' mindset is, and what's going on with their kids. And we live in we live in constant fear. So as someone that unfortunately had to go through what parents fear the most, what can you tell us about that, about how how do we prepare for that, and how do we prevent that? Can we prevent that?
Yeah. I wish I had a magic crystal ball to say, hey, we're all going to live happily ever after. We just raise them the best we can and they're going to turn out, really, really well. And again, in my work as a grief recovery specialist, what I teach and how I live my life is to live really wholeheartedly and not have any regrets of that. Oh, I wish I should have said this, or could have done this, or would have done this, right? Because that's where really grief is, that undelivered communication. And so if I can share anything that I know is helpful for me and I know can really change and transform relationships, is instead of living in that fear, is communicate and deliver communication as much as possible. Love your kids every day like it's their last, because it doesn't have to be an overdose. It doesn't have to be corona. It can people just don't wake up one day. I mean, anything can happen at any time. So if we live in that place of, you know what, I'm going to give my whole heart and really share everything that I'm feeling and how much I love these kids every single day, then if the inevitable happens, there's so much peace that you've communicated that. And I know that with Jacob, we did that. He had been battling mental health issues, drug addiction, substance abuse, for a couple years prior to him passing away. And so we were already living in that cycle of, we don't know when, if he's going to make it tomorrow, because it was such a volatile, in and out of rehab and therapy and like just a lot of stuff. And so once I stopped living in fear and I started to really be present and just love him unconditionally every single day, like that was a game changer for me, because I know so many parents, myself included, who live in that constant fear of what's going to happen, or what if this happens, or what if that happens. So when you're living in that, you're not present to enjoy, you know what, you're here right now, you're in front of me right now, let me make the best and the most of this situation right here right now. So I don't know if that helps anyone, but I know that has totally helped me so much.
I just love so much how you put that too. I think living, and I kind of say this like that too, and I always feel like it sounds really morbid, but almost living like it's the last, and every engagement with your child, treating it like it might be the last time. And I learned that when I lost my dad, because I had, I had talked to him the night before, the next day, I got a call that he had passed away from a heart attack. And knowing that I had said, talk to him that day and told him how much I loved him. And that's the thing where you don't have that regret. And like you said, it's like, I think grief and not being able to let go of grief is the regret that you have left over, that lingering regret. And so making sure that you don't have that regret. And so every person in my life, when I leave them, I make sure they know I love them, because if anything like that happened, I know that that's the only way I was able to just get through that, right? So I think that message is so important with how are you interacting with your family? How are you interacting with your kids? Is it in a way that if something happened tomorrow, you'd be okay with it?
Yeah. And especially when you are dealing with kids who have substance issues or addictions, so many families are estranged from their children. So if and when something happens, that regret and that guilt is magnified, right? Because then you have all these questions. And so, I mean, I don't, like I said, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't have all the answers. You know, there's a whole other issue of enabling and codependency, and there has to be boundaries. But I think as long as our family knows, or our loved ones know just how much we love them, we might not approve of everything that they're doing, but there's this unconditional love. And I know the last text messages I had with Jacob was, I love you, I'm thinking about you. The last time we saw each other with a big hug, I love, you know, unprompted from a teenager, I love you, Mom. I mean, I will never forget that, you know. So it's just, you know, I feel very fortunate because I know there's a lot of people that don't get that. And so if I can encourage us now to really be proactive and intentional about living that way, I think, you know, that'll be really great. So stop living in the fear of the what ifs, because you're you know, wasting energy on things that haven't happened. Focus on what's in front of you and what you can do right now, what you have control over, what you know, your response, your responsibility, your reaction is right here, right now, whatever's in front of you, and that you have control over, right?
Absolutely. Those are really good words to end right now and let people know that you are joining me tonight. We're going to do a whole hour of this. We're going to learn more about your story, more about how to be mindful and present in the moment and be with our kids. And so I want to invite people to join us tonight, and I will put a link for you guys to register if you haven't registered already. And then right before we go to, tell us where to get your book, because I know you offer your signed book.
Yay. Yes. So you can go to my website. It's judythureson.com, all one word. And you can also get it on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, online. Just look up Beautiful Tragedy by Judy Thureson. So thank you so much.
Yeah. Oh,
I'm excited about tonight. Tonight's going to be awesome.
Yes.
Have a little bit more time together.
Yes, exactly.
And I'll be a little bit more awake. I'll have my coffee by then.
That would be, yeah, there we go. You were wonderful right now.
Oh, so thank you.
We will hopefully, I will definitely see you tonight, and hopefully we'll see everyone else tonight. And in the meantime, have a beautiful, calm day.